Welcome back. After that short break, LJL fans around the world, we're going to go through some of the finer things we would like to see here as we head forwards into Game 2 of Rascal Jesters versus Sengoku. Rascal Jesters have overcome their kryptonite. The paper has well and truly engulfed the hands of the scissors. If we want to see Sengoku bounce back in the second game, we have to see some changes. RMC, take us through the one you would like to see the most.
Okay, Tempora, we've touched on, potential pick changes, ban changes here, but I want to touch on playing around your strong point for Sengoku here. I felt like they were always on the back foot. They never quite got proactive with it. And when you've got a winning lane, you play to it. Jet on the Vygar was amazing. We only got to see Jet kind of do his own thing, stall out waves, find his own picks. And I'd like to see Sengoku back him up on that. Play around your strong point here. It doesn't have to be on the Vygar. Jet can do it on a whole plethora of champions.
Plethora indeed has been a focal point of Sengoku this year.
I want that Kali. I want the Kali.
Ooh. Strong wishes. All right, we'll have to see if
Swan's
Swan's Christmas list is respected. Middle cut, something else we went through. This isn't really a Sengoku style of setup here in this game one.
Yeah, and I think that sort of extends from RNC's point about playing around Jets. It felt like maybe Sengoku were a little bit less practiced around the Veigar as a pick. So getting Jet something a little bit more traditional for him in terms of his playstyle. I know the LeBlanc and the Silas were taken off the table, but I wouldn't mind seeing the Akali or something else that can play a bit more
Twisted Fate.
Aggressive make plays, specific a possibility as well. Something that lets Jet be Jet, lets him pop off, and lets him be a big carry for this team.
Yeah, when I think of Jet, just holistically, I think of the Akali, I think of the Ahri, I think of the strong picks that take it to your opponent. Swan, something else we weren't super jazzed about, but wasn't a huge issue, but could be improved upon maybe. Sengoku's objective control. We saw a lot of steals. We saw a lot of issue around those circular pits in game one.
So I'm not going to say anything crazy like double smite or disco nunu. All right, let's not go crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Right, I'm just saying.
Axis.
Axis. We no. They didn't make playoffs sadly because Honey left them. As did Hoglet left the region. We want you back, Hoglet. Please come back to us. The LLA is not working out for you, is it?
Oh no.
Oh, I don't know why I'm firing shots here on the desk. Anyway, Sengoku objective control. I will get back to that. I promise you, Temporal. And the main point for this is really Dragon number 4. They should have rotated around. They really should have prioritized that heavy more because I think that would have been an opposite point because so many steals happen for the side of Rascal Jester. If they had an Elder Baron, Elder Dragon rather, playing around, I think it would be a good spot.
Proactivity, going back to their style, and security around objectives. 3 keys to game 2 now for Sengoku as they must fight back against the Rascal Jesters that have showed up in game 1 and pushed their game state forwards. The advantage now in their court. We're going to cut it to the casters. We'll be back after this all-exciting game 2. Good luck, gentlemen.
Episode 1 is complete. Jet on the Tiny Master of Evil is looking to bring peace and security to his new objective control, according to Lexi. Need to step that up for Sengoku Gaming if they want to take it here against.
Do we need to have exactly the same drafts to have Attack of the Clones?
I mean, it would be Attack. That's actually Attack of the Clone draft. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Okay, so we're looking for the salty run back to continue our line of reasoning in this one, I guess. But in terms of the analytical side of things,
a bit strong.
Yeah, I mean, I love that kind of game because we kind of said this a lot in pre-game, a lot through game 1, because this is kind of our read on these two teams and how we've got to know them is that we know that one team is going to be an exceptionally good team in terms of Rascal Jester, in terms of how they play out their team fight, how disciplined they are. But there's heroes to be stood up for and heroes to really make their move in this series. And Sengoku so nearly did that. They so nearly did that. And actually, of course, it was Secret who pulled off some heroics of their own with that. Tom Kench Q steal onto the Baron, but into that second draft. Let's see, we will get ourselves something similar.
Certainly a semi-salty run back in the ban, so it's been a trade out of the Hecarim ban for an Ahri ban against Recap, who, despite a bruiser build, was incredibly good at looking for picks. It might not be your first time playing Ahri, but let's be real, he was playing Facilitator exceptionally well.
And sometimes there are team comps which you look at and you go, I don't want to dive into that. That sounds like a bad idea. And, you have to kind of play accordingly to that. And Recap honestly had a great game, as did most of Rascal Jester. So Hecarim's on the table. It's been passed over. It's going to be the Jinx again, so I'm going to pick that one up. You assume that the Hecarim's going to be picked up at some point. I know that actually, again, a lot of people are starting to really dislike the B1 Hecarim. It's very easy to counter. I think particularly when you are B1ing it, you can answer with something like Viego Ari, right? Where you have to dive into 2 champions you can't really pin down, who punish you on the dive, and you struggle to really play through your primary play pattern. And Hecarim struggles to have a secondary one. He dives, and he dives some more. That's what he does. Now, having the Tahm Kench takeaway and unloading the Toad, unleashing the Catfish, means that there's another disengage option taken away from Rascal Jesters in terms, well, which could have helped against that Hecarim, and it means that the Jinx is going to have to play with a degree of less safety.
So obviously that's one of the big safety tools out of the support pool, but instead, in a way to try and clog the frog, they'll try and throw down the, I say they're going to throw down the Zillion. Instead, they go towards a much more aggressive option here with, of course, the Rakan. Of course, there's still room for a Zillion elsewhere in the draft. Hell, we've cast and accommodated legitimate pro play Zillion top. It's a doable thing, specifically into Gwen, which makes Gwen's life hell.
Who runs at you and eats like a 90% slow and then
doesn't run and then crawls as a cripple, sort of trying to get further forward.
Just try to hobble along with the scissors and see what they can do with that. Well, we've had the Toad has been unloaded, but Rascal Jesters have flipped the bird and locked in the Rakan, and they have themselves a Trundle. Now, this is something which I really enjoy, because one thing which I think is very powerful about the Volibear ban from Sengoku is it denies Rascal Jester a lot of winning early jungle matchups. They didn't play towards that last game. Now, Trundle is one of those champions which wins every early jungle matchup, pretty much. Almost certainly. He chomps you, you don't get any AD, and then he just runs you down with the red buff, and it's really, really annoying to play against. However, remember, it's the LJL. We don't really fight early here. This does give Hachimacha some options to play through, but we've got to see him actually use the tools he's been given. You have an Aphelios on the other side. You know that if you don't act before level 6, the Aphelios, the Hecarim, and the Tahm Kench are probably going to pound for pound outdo this first 3 if you go towards 3v3s, if you go towards larger fights. So watch out for that moment. Level 6 to level 11 starting to really look dangerous for Sengoku if Rascal Jester choose to pick those fights.
And of course, now we're at the semi-finals. There isn't a lot of room to hide cards anymore. You've got to start throwing out some of these slightly more interesting options. And honestly, for Rascal Jesters, it doesn't get mentioned that much anymore. But you've got to remember, Vical, their coach, has been around the scene at some of the top-end clubs in the world. This is the guy who coached Uzi on Starholm World Cup, who was on KT Rolster, who was on Kongdu Monsters, Supermassive, All Knights. He's been all over the world and been pretty successful in a lot of very Premier Leagues, who came into Rascal Jester and honestly was a big part of their resurgence into being a Premier team in the LJL again. And now at this semi-finals point, you're kind of past some of those teams where you maybe wanted to hide some of that stuff when you had to do a lower bracket run. What have you got here in this second phase? What have you got to try and throw out some curveballs here? And you can see some of those curveball bans to try and stop Jet doing exactly that.
And it's aiding the dive, right? And again, it's kind of that same kind of power spike around one item. Your ultimate's unlocked. You're looking for the big Herald fight, looking towards the mid-game to really start playing through with the lead. So Sengoku, they've eaten a lot of mid-bans at this point. Sylas, Echo, Akali, all mobile, diving, melee AP threats. What they said is, look, you played the Tryndamere into the Nard last game, and Paz actually played that matchup really well.
He really did. Great itemization, right?
Great itemization along the rest of it, and being able to last out that matchup held Sengoku in that game. It was still a loss, but that was a good part of it. So they're going to pick that and say, you don't have a good enough counter for it, and Rascal Jesters, they're ticking down the clock even on this 4-5 to say, okay, well, what are we going to do? We're going to have to blind pick mid. They're going to go towards recap Syndra, which is one thing which he's played a lot throughout the years. In fact, when he came back into the LJL last year, when he took that break in 2020, he came back and he played a lot of this champion, and he did find a lot of success on it. It was actually his best champion back then. But I'm looking at this comp from Sengoku now, and I look at this and think, Vex is looking really quite good for your draft. I think a Vex Hecarim with everything else diving in seems pretty good. So you know that you're already going to have to deal with this anti-dive. Do you want to go towards that 1-4? And they do. I mean, you're not going towards the bigger team fights. Maybe they could have locked in something like an Ornn and just play around bigger team fights, but they're saying, look, even if you're going to dive heavily onto us, we're going to go run back part of what gave us such success last game.
And I've seen Recap play Syndra into difficult matchups where Syndra was going to be difficult if she missed a Scout of the Week. The problem is Recap doesn't miss Scout of the Weeks. I have seen him consistently stun Kai'Sa out of her ultimate with Syndra stuns, with the Scout of the Week. If you look back to last year, there are times when he stunned Sol Well, no, actually not Soul, Soul was on his team, but he was stunning like Honey out of his ultimates. Gango out of his ultimates. It was extraordinary stuff.
And speaking of kind of an extraordinary pick, it's one that we saw so much during this split, but it's fallen off a lot. It's the Corki. Now, I think this is a pretty huge draft win for Sengoku, because now you have huge outrange with disengage and aggressive options. You have a scaling option in that jungle in the Hecarim to work as peel. If you try and aggress onto the Corki, I actually think that between the Tahm Kench and actually more of a defensive Tahm Kench ult, you get to play around your extended range, you get to play around being able to play out with very high DPM numbers later into that game. And this all works now because Paz showed that he can survive in that Tryndamere matchup. If that happens again, I think that Sengoku will look at this and say, you don't have enough engage to shut us down. If you do try and go towards it, we have enough disengage to deal with it. I think, as opposed to game 1, where I was very much favoring Rascal Jester and it got drawn out, Sengoku have the draft win now, in my eyes. But can they play it out to the same degree?
And, the moment a Hex Drinker comes through, of course, he did a more mana. Like, Syndra doesn't have the burst on. You've kind of got the disengage, you've got the range. I'm honestly there with you. Of course, it's still Secret on Rakan. I love him on Rakan. He does extraordinary things. Hachimecha has been a Trundle player for a very, very, very long time. In fact, I think it might be right up there as his most played champion of all time, if I recall correctly.
Ooh,
of all time. Double check for me, but I seem to recall that being at least true. It's at least within his top
You are
three.
correct. It is just behind his Jarvan, but Trundle has 21 games on. And his next... Actually, his Jarvan is tied with that, so
there you go. So it is his tied most played champion. So this will be an extra one to that stat. So he's put a lot of time into this champion. And if you can do Trundle Pillar into Easy Rakan Engage into Syndra Stun, you've got ways to pick people off. I'm just looking at the team fight, at the range discrepancy that you can pull out from Sengoku Gaming. If you get 3 items on that Corki, 3 items on that Aphelios, that sounds pretty unhappy to play into.
And not to have just put the question down and kind of just say we might get more of what we saw in game 1, because I wouldn't want to bait you with that, because game 1 was so fantastic. And again, that was one of those games where it makes you love the region. And for me, it's one of those games where I'm like, God damn, I love the LJL. And I sit there, I think, I love watching the popcorn and all of this, but a lot of that game happened because Veigar could stall out. You know, who's great at stalling out? Corki.
Yeah.
Corki, you get to 3 items, you get to 4 items, and you sat there thinking, how do we push into this champion at this point in the game? So, have to see now if Sengoku will choose to take a slower pace in the game and look to scale up. Of course, they have the kind of the not losing matchup, but the difficult to execute matchup with the Aphelios into the Jinx. Saw that in the last game very nearly work out for them. But Sengoku still have some options to potentially play out early with the Aphelios kind of outskilling the Jinx before she gets to level 9, but after level 6 in those couple of mid-game levels. So Sengoku have multiple ways to play out this game if they really want.
Couple rune options here. Soul's opted in for the lethal tempo on the Jinx. Is the fleet footwork tech for Aphelios, which has become increasingly popular after the changes. First strike on Corki is no surprise, of course, and phase rush on Hecarim, which again has become more prevalent as Conqueror again has been less of an option on the horse, as people have moved away from things like the Divine Sender and the Trinity Falls back towards the counter.
I think that the phase rush in this particular game is quite important, because if you eat a pillar slow, you need that slow resist. You need it. And I know that it's not going to be the best dueling rune. I don't think you need to be fighting that early as the Hecarim. I think the Hecarim just wants to scale up and just make sure that you're surviving in the fight. Being disruptive, you don't have to be a main carry. You have enough damage on your team, so that one checks out for me. However, you look over at Blitzcrank Sensei, and again, we are students of the school of Blitzcrank Sensei, and it is saying once again, Rascal Jesters are going to be peaking towards the late game. I do think that they do, of course. They have the Tryndamere who can start winning in that side lane. Should enough gold be given their way, and you have the Jinx, which again has such high value, but given how last game went, you cannot trust that.
Add some nameplates, add some hands into that equation, and it gets so much harder to read, and that makes things pretty tricky. And honestly, my eyes a little bit on Once this game as well, who had an okay Viego game, but he's been right up there as one of the best junglers in the region. Honestly, he would have been first team All-Pro if Steel hadn't just bodied the region. He's been so good on things like the Lee Sin, on some of his scaling picks. I've known this guy as a monster who's finally had a resurgence.
Can I hear Middlecott screaming Cassin in the background?
Look, I
Is
don't.
that just me?
Look, just because Middlecott decides that his favorite game is tossing a coin, the rest of us don't agree. So Graves, a champion pool of Graves doesn't make you the best jungler in the region.
I was about to say, is this like Middlecott of Rivia? Is that what we're going now? We're tossing a coin for him. Either way, Hachimecha
very good.
Hachimecha shielding bot lane after getting themselves up to that level 3, and now we have to see if Hachimecha will use this early winning jungle matchup again. We've seen We've seen his volley bear be something to be feared, something that the whole team could play around. They blew out early games as that kind of early jungle matchup. But with other champions, Rascal Jesters have often felt more contented to say, look, we'll just get to the point where we can team fight. Our team fighting is good, or our team fighting is superb, given the right kind of compositions. But can we actually play around it in this game? And it feels like Hachimecha might just use this matchup to just kind of nullify early pressure from Sengoku, though I don't think they'd be looking to fight either. I'm not sure they're getting value out of the Trundle.
That's kind of perhaps a concern I personally have had with Hachimecha when I have been critical of this player, is he's had really strong first 2 clears. Really, like, across his history, we've seen him do some incredible things in the early pathing to try and throw some wrenches in the work, so to speak. But then there kind of comes this 6 to 15 minute point where sometimes he can get a little bit lost, and he comes into these team fights in the late game when he's an absolute monster and pulls off some incredible plays to save his team. But we have sometimes seen him get a little caught out in that sort of just early mid-game point where he can sometimes be a little less efficient, a little less proactive than we would like.
So, for those of you that didn't watch League of Legends in like Season 5 and 6, when the early game...
I'm with you.
The early game was very, very decided. Everyone would lane swap and everything would happen in the same way. We get to borrow something from that era of time as well. We know nothing's going to happen for like another couple of minutes, really. We're not really... We don't do that here. So, Sam, what would you like to talk about? We have time. What's the feeling? We can talk about the LJL and how it means to us. We can talk about some stupid Star Wars or other pop culture related puns. We have a menu. Would you like to press 1 to talk to a person on the
What happens if I press 3? What happens if I press 3?
If you press 3, we talk about the skin which Jet has, which I haven't.
I haven't actually looked at. Okay, we're gonna talk about it now because I pressed 3.
So you press 3. Okay, so we're gonna go hover over the mid lane and see whatever happens. Because look, again, we save up all of our early game action for whatever happens. It's the corgi.
Okay, it's the corgi. It's the right call.
Did you know that corgis' butts float in water?
I did know that.
Yeah, so
they are actually buoyant. They have buoyant butts.
So the rest of them doesn't float, but then they just have like their butt just floating in the water. So there you go. For those of you in chat that didn't know that. Corgis have buoyant butts.
Buoyant butts, exactly. Honestly, it's really worth a Google search because it's actually a serious, wholesome moment for your day to watch all these corgi butts just float up occasionally. And then, of course, they're corgis, so they have these really perky ears. They just sort of like swim around and have a great time.
That's the one.
Exactly
but speaking of slow early games where we get to talk about pretty much anything and nothing at the same time, we have double gold for the AD carry.
Oh, this is grief. It really is.
Like they're giving it. They're being very gracious with us today. Able to do this, and to think that we sat here 2.5 years after starting this little project and still talking the same all over again.
We might be, but is that an early dragon start? What, might we see some action? Is it time for a contest?
No, there's bot prio. It won't happen.
Are you sure? I mean, once is there?
There shouldn't be a contest.
Is there going to be?
There's no Hecarim. It might just end up getting peeled off of, but.
What? We're going to see a fight over the Scuttle Crab. Who needs bot pressure when you can still contest the Scuttle Crab with a level advantage?
Look at the Scuttle go. Isn't this a great
Scuttle Crab racing. It's back to Nexus Blitz we go.
Oh man, I missed that game mode. I missed that. Not just because of DFG. Not just about DFG being in there, but
it's mostly about DFG.
I mean, once is yeah, pretty much. That also being able to honorably 1v1 people in the arena of Valor. But once is actually starting to get a bit of a small lead at this point. The Hecarim is racing up towards level 6, and Hachimecha again, a little bit worried about the value actually getting out of this Trundle. If you are going to prioritize this pick, you need to get a fair amount out of it, and they're not really doing that. Hecarim is going to have high value in this. No, they don't have that many dive buddies unless you have the package available or Gnar has good angle, but I mean, it's still Hecarim. Hecarim does huge things in teamfights late game. And just relying on the Trundle ult to deal with them is not the best thing ever.
No, not necessarily. Of course, you might even need to use it on something like the Gnar if he comes in for a flank angle. You might not even then get to use it on the Hecarim. Like, subjugate only works on one person. You don't get to subjugate a whole team. However much of a potentate you might like to be, the Troll King is only able to cow one subject at a time.
That's not very efficient subject.
I know. Look,
domineering.
He is just very much a one-track troll. You know, he likes to focus his mind on particular enemies.
As opposed to the OTP, the one-track pony, which is the Hecarim who only dives.
Yeah. Exactly. Is it one track? Is it one trick? Is this pony on rails now?
Well, this one is on rails going straight
to the Iron Horse.
The Iron. No. So now we need to start talking about steam trains. That's
exactly. So is Hecarim steam powered?
Could you? I mean, is there
Black Mist powered? Does Black Mist count as steam?
I'm trying to remember. Is there a high noon Hecarim?
There is. There absolutely is.
Oh right. Okay. Cool. In that case, we actually do have the Iron Horse.
Indeed.
all that good stuff.
Good double stun. Is this finally some action?
No, it's not. No,
it's not. There's a Hex Drinker in inventory for Jet as well,
look,
so I don't think he actually takes
Guardian.
damage.
I mean, there is a Herald. We can talk about that.
Now, actually, we might have our first taste of action. Enti, tongue lashed across the wall, recap down to half HP.
Jinx isn't here.
Jinx is not here. Honey going towards the mid lane. This will be a 4v4 without AD carries. Sol will be coming up the mid lane now, and we've finally got every member available. In goes the Onslaught of Shadows, just shy, but will force some flashes out of Recap. Turning around, starting to come through his Ido into the backside. Remember, he's still got the Undying Rage. Sol gets first kill, and now the turnarounds can start to come through. Lots of low health bars. Who got that one? Hatchamecha did, but he can't get on top of the eye.
He didn't.
It wasn't getting. I thought he did. And that means now they need to ward off the side of Once to try and get in on top of this eye. I think it'll just be first blood, and no one can secure the Eye of the Herald.
Okay, so now they've paid the taxes to the audience. So those in chat, please collect as
It's
such.
not, we just checked again.
You have been given 1 kill in 9 minutes. So enjoy that sparingly. We are once again heading towards all of our action being backloaded into this game, and you can see why the teams are trying to play around these cooldowns kind of going in and out. You need to wait for another scout of the week. You need to wait for another ability to kind of get into the backline. Ino decides, well, screw it, I'll do it myself. Rushes in there, and with the assistance of Sol's Rocket, does get something for it. But even with the 1 kill, it's a split fight. It's a Herald for a kill. No real advantages held over the other at this point.
It is a 400 gold lead, which is basically first blood that's in the pockets of Rascal Jesters. Nobody picked up the Herald, though, so that means it's time for the S word, Alex.
No, don't tell me about the S word. What's the S word?
Steam Train. Got him. We're going to replay in bot-siders. Hatchamecha stole the blue buff from his mid laner.
Okay, so we go from... Look, I know...
Welcome to the LJL hype train.
So, for those of you, again, who are watching the LJL for the first time, we like to have a little bit of early game fun, but not actually early game action here.
That's a very reasonable way of putting it. That was a very gentle way of explaining what's happening.
And, you know, we get to take the angle of kind of like disappointed parents saying, look, guys, can you maybe use your comps to where they're supposed to be done? But we are still within 500 to 1,000 golds within that mark. We do have potential catch. No, we don't, because again, we're not allowed to kill people here. We're a very family-friendly broadcast. Fun for most of the family, I presume.
Most of the family, unless you're below the age of about 12 or above the age of about 60 and don't understand how computers work. But that's not every over 6-year-old, because our grandmother is probably the most technologically literate person I know. Hatchamecha, though, eats a rocket and walks away from danger. And
this is literally it is Once pressing E and saying, mind the gap, please alight for Bermondsey or something like that. Or other train stations.
It's the end of the Piccadilly line, if you know what I mean. We'll leave it at that.
I mean, at this point, we're going to need some in-flight snacks, and Piccadilly is, I guess, one of them. It is actually a food stuff for those of you who are not aware of our Britishisms. And after game one... After game one was so high octane, once we reached a certain point, we are waiting for that train to pick up speed, and he has flash. It's not going to mean anything. At least you take that away from them. But you can see what happens when Rascal Jesters don't actually have proactive tools. You are literally waiting on
no flash. He's going to get attempted on the dive. There is the attempting with the devastating charge, and we'll have an onslaught of shadows. It's a good scout of the week.
Don't dive Syndra.
Don't dive Syndra! What have I just witnessed?
Don't dive Syndra!
There is
a Hecarim. They neglect to leave.
No, what am I witnessing? The Hecarim was available. You could have immuned the stun. Instead, everybody dies. It's both Jet and Once diving on an attempt sort of flash to Syndra.
I'm done analyzing why you shouldn't dive Syndra and other such things, Sam. What tube station is this?
This is the end of the line, is what this is, because in goes the Iron Horse, and then realizes that there's a big red light there. There's no track remaining. Great scatter the week, and then there's no one sort of shadows to finish it off, so everyone dies.
This is the thing, right? Recap just has to sit Q, then ult, and then the balls are going to scatter. You just have to hold on to your E, and good discipline to kind of pull off that play. But I mean, this very much streaks. It speaks a little bit of desperation between the two teams.
When I was asking for early action, that wasn't what I meant. But Onslaught of Shadows over the pillar isn't bad. Not going to get as much out of this as they would have liked, though, and they're just going to force out some basic abilities and try and force Rascal to spot lane back away a little bit.
The thing, I mean, you say force out basic abilities, and imagine if you had a Nautilus Hook or maybe Zenith Blade. You have more ways to play these fights, but neither of these teams have real early ways to play out this game. We've seen that for 13 minutes. I'm not going to mention it again at this point. You know they're not going to fight until you actually get to an objective, and you have high enough damage to then force the issue, right? You're getting to a point where maybe Syndra can one-tap someone, Corki can one-tap someone. You don't have a Hecarim ult for this. You have a package, though. That's not a basic ability.
Time to try to get this one out as Secret pops the quickness. Soul's rooted onto tower. There's the package under it. Jet gets that kill onto the Rakan, but once is left in a very difficult position. Here come the rest of Sengoku. Can't get in range for the Devour, though. He's just out of range from where the flash was burned earlier. Abyssal Dive tries to go through and will get out. It's a 1-for-1 overall.
But it's only a 1-for-1. You don't even get that many plates on the other side, and of course the Herald's not in factoring into this. Sol is
trying to think about where Jet was, I think.
There you go.
And won't get it. I mean, the bird teleports, there's at least that.
Actually, he's actually playing for a technological victory in this Civ game, because, you know, there's one side with all the trains, but he's like, well, let's go to a starport. I'm going to start getting towards my rock. Okay, I know this is not a starport.
It's just that.
Either way, maybe it's
Who's
still
Gandhi in this respective argument? We're going to see at this point an attempted dive, and honestly, it goes okay until once kind of gets left out to dry and NT can't get in range for the Devour.
NT can't get in range for the Devour. Actually, Secret ends up battle dancing, not battle dancing, grand entrancing on top of the package, so ends up dying kind of for his own mechanism, and sadly doesn't get much for it. But again, we're still within 500 gold. We are still waiting for the 2-item spikes, the 1-item spikes. There's a Hex Drinker for that Corki, which you don't talk about, which means that if you are going for plays onto the Corki, another way you can... Sam, no one has engaged. Let me remind you, no one has engaged. This does not matter.
I just saw, like, there's a lot of people around it, but they can't actually stop him. You're completely right. I know is attacking this poor little Gnar. Flash for flash. There's going to be a ghost pop, but they can't quite get it. Recap's roamed up. Has nowhere near a mega. So Orb will miss. Sphere will not be required as a Scout of the Week brings down the minion.
All right, so now finally a little bit of an opening. Now you're going to have plates going down. Well, not plates. That's beyond that point now. You're going to have waves being lost to turret. You're getting a little bit more golden pocket. And against Syndra, if you do reach a certain breakpoint, actually becomes a bit of a threat, because those Scout of the Weeks go from kind of just a nuisance into, oh heck, that's actually a threat now. Now, with the Herald being able to break open some part of the map, Rascal Jesters have themselves a chance at a power play, an ability to kind of take a large sweeping advance somewhere on the map. But of course, there's always going to be a play across map. Honey has the correct weapons to start really shredding through towers, so it's not even like it's a one-sided victory for Rascal Jester. They kind of need to get something out of the Herald to recoup some of that value from the play.
And you can see, even with the kills, like it's particularly in Recap's victory, Jet still has the gold advantage because First Strike is an ability.
And there's still only 300. And there's still only 300 gold between the 80 carries. So while there has been the kills have gone the way of the Rascal Jester, well, you've still got advantages being taken by Sengoku. And from last game, Jet, Honey had pretty standout performances. They were there, they were threats, and they're on champions which don't have to deal with cutting through a Sejuani this time, which will certainly help them, and there's much less threats onto them. So, Sengoku, with less threat onto their carries, with more ability to carry into the late game, going even at this point, it's a net win for Sengoku, even the Rascal Jester have found some ways onto the board.
And honestly, like, despite the slight early game hysteria, honestly, Sengoku Gaming, we're really happy waiting for 2 items. Like, you get Corki and Aphelios for 2 items for free, you are super pleased. Like this, like the other S word scaling, which isn't Steam Trade.
They've actually gone onto the central line. They're at Bank now. They're on the Bank branch, which is, for those of you who, again, aren't from London, is another tube stop. That's the joke. Enjoy it while it lasts.
I'm fairly sure Bank is under, like that branch just isn't working for the Northern Line right now.
Sam, the Northern Line never works.
Much like screeches in a minute.
I guess in this time we have the engaged lane, which has been shut until game 3. There you go. Come back at a different time. Maybe it doesn't work on certain times and weekdays. This and other musings I have to go towards because I can't understand why these teams are playing out as though they have engaged in just a minute.
I am aware we haven't quite descended into Hangman territory yet, but I'm aware it's looming over the Nightmare Hysteria horizon. And it's a Sengoku game again. It's Sengoku again.
I'd like to bring back to you, like, kind of a bit more of a poignant point. I mean, we learned how to cast in this region. One day we decided, hey, I want to cast League of Legends. How about we go cast some LJL? That was us two alongside Mass Swan, who of course is on the desk, joining us on this journey through our next split. So we have to journey towards this next Baron, next Dragon. No. I know there were 4 last game. It's not quite there yet. We have another Dragon, have another ability for these teams to actually for the first time in this game outside of that Herald. Sorry, second time, because the Herald happened. Look, nothing really happened at the Herald. We might get a fight for once. An actual bodies on the ground fight.
Knock down, drag out is what we're hoping for, and while we might get to muse about our casting journey some other time, we're going to have to muse about an attempted play for mid lane priority. Jet, I don't believe has package available, but is still at a Muramana and does half of Salt's health with a big one.
Okay, this is the thing. Now you actually have Syndra who can hit scatters. You've got rockets coming in from the Corki, and now while you don't have engage, that means these chariot carries don't have to worry about their positioning quite so much. I know it's on ward. He sees it now. Probably should have seen that a little earlier.
Down to 1500. He's going to now go in for the steal, but it's once it gets, he's going to onslaught the shadows away. I know now has to get out of the back of this fight. Undying range will make things difficult. That is the kill back, but now he needs to escape. More rockets come flying. He gets enough of a heal to not die. The boulder toss will be just shy. And Rascal Jesters get the kill, but they do lose the dragon.
It's still only one kill. We can't ever have more than one person dying. And again, this is all well and good, but it's only like half engage. It's non-committal. You have to really just pray and wait for Secret to find ridiculous amounts of damage or amount of CC, or maybe a package from the other side. That is what you're waiting for. Jet didn't have the package at that turn, so we have a 1 kill for 1 objective trade. Yet again, we saw the Herald, and we're going to have that for this dragon. And I know on the one kind of the one flank angle gets spotted out, Paz deals with them, but Paz being away means that the Meganar's not in place. And Meganar, again, we talked about the package being a potential engage angle. The Meganar is, of course, kind of on the table, but Scout of the Week, it's disengage. You got pillars for disengage. It's so hard to find your targets in this game as both teams.
Yeah, and the Gale Force there just about secured a kill onto Once, who was now running around rapidly to see whether there'll be an angle in onto the Trinity and got a little bit too close for comfort.
And the thing is that, like, as much as we are approaching the Nymera Hysteria Horizon, that's a great, I like that. That's a cool, thank you for that. I'm going to use that.
Welcome.
I'm not going to sit here and say the teams are playing badly. The teams are bad at what they do. They just don't have the comps to really make the explosive plays. You are literally waiting on Corki Rockets landing on 1 Scout of the Week. When you have these 10 champions in this rift, in these arrangements, you're just not going to see big fights. You're just not going to see it. You're waiting for slow, drawn-out, poke-fast pick affairs, and that's all you can really do from this, because no one wants to overstep into this damage. No one wants to do that, so you have to wait, play around your range, and that's not a fault of the players. It's just, please draft engage.
And a bit of a look in at these two mid laners in the playoffs as it stands. Big kill participation numbers for both of them, big damage percentage numbers for both of them, and Recap's really stepped up, but Jet is still a superstar.
He is, and Recap, for most of last year, I thought he was, okay, Honey's gonna have to develop. Okay, whatever, again, disengage, it's disengage. Again, there's no real way to catch out these carries. It's a cooldown blown. What you're really waiting for is these multi-part fights where you have someone caught off, and then you engage again. But then you still have to wait for those cooldowns to come back up. But speaking of Recap, of course, I mean, Recap is someone that last year I thought had an okay performance. He was outperformed in the big matches. He couldn't really make it happen versus DFM when they had Arya, and some of the other top talent in the region would kind of hold him to account. But this year, really come into his own, picked up the Veigar, picked up a number of other picks. Now we have another kind of standoff 4v4 in that mid lane where the top laners go off. And again, we're just waiting for skill shots to land. You're not going to see the big 5-on-5 fights.
Sol now at level 11, outranging Honey with the rockets right now. Fishbones definitely online. And it's just making this siege into the mid lane an absolute priority for Rascal Jester. They want this last 10%, 5% even, of this tower in mid lane. But the rocket poke is beginning to hurt. There's the Calibrum in as well, means that Honey can start returning some of the fire that Sol was throwing with impunity just moments before.
J-Ram, we're right here in the mid lane, and this is actually where that gold on the Syndra, which was picked up earlier, and the Jinx, becomes really important, because you're ahead of the curve as the Syndra. Suddenly, all of those skill shots you land, they mean just that little bit extra more. And if you do land that onto an Aphelios, onto a Corki, actually pretty much onto anyone, they have to change their position. It means that you're in less of a position to defend. Once has an ult to get away, and it's just, how many times can we say no one dies in this game?
And of course, it's still a minute and 20 or so until that dragon, and at level 11, once his cooldown isn't going to be too extraordinarily long. It will be up for the next big fight, so you can kind of get away with burning it as well.
So actually, just a quick thing on itemization. So I know that Rapid Fire Cannon is not really an item you pick for damage on the Jinx. It's something that really helps you in the standoffs in the mid lane, right? As you see top lane, it's doing its thing. Again. Yeah. Trading back and forth. But when you have that Rapid Fire Cannon on Jinx, when you are in these 10 standoffs, it allows you to walk up to the wave, hit it a little bit more efficiently, and definitely more safely. And those single autos where you know that they actually kind of add into the poke battle, they mean quite a lot. So again, I think this is the right itemization from Sol, and I think that's a big kind of power spike for, or rather, piece of utility for Rascal Jester to play around. Now, It's not really even to a big one landing on you when you do have potential Ludens coming in from Jet. He's really going to start pumping out damage soon. And once again, we have teleports coming into the mid lane. This is the battleground that both these teams have chosen. We are really just waiting for one big slip up, one big pick to then kind of like start breaking these phalanxes apart.
And when mid lane priority has been such a key point for both of these teams, stuff like damage onto Honey before a big fight is critical. Yes, he's got the shield, but it's not going to be the most in terms of HP, but he gets to turn it around. Jet does so much onto recap.
They're giving as good as it gets. We actually have a Bloodthirster now onto Honey, so he gets to heal back up. Again, another smooth itemization choice by one of these AD carries, but it's not led to anything huge right now.
Ino's already on the Dragon, by the way. He's just soloing that one down. As Secret taken down at 10% HP, but the Dragon is taken one man by the top laner as once gets chunked out by the Subjugate. Paz might think about hopping over the wall, but decides against it. Instead, Sengoku Gaming try to hold court in this mid lane and shove for that instead.
Because we're an unofficial broadcast, I can suggest that you may want to play a drinking game with this one and say each time someone, I mean, if you want to say,
it's like
if
10 a.m.
if you want, I mean, in Japan it's a very different time zone, but you're looking at this and say every time someone dies, take a shot because no one's dying, you're gonna stay sober. There you go. I'm actually breaking you away from your alcohol fixation on that one, and there we go, bringing it back to family.
It's caffeine. You're drinking coffee. It's Colombian roast a la Middlecott.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, sure. Bring out your caffeine. We'll do that instead because. At this point, we're gonna fall asleep before the next kill happens, and again, it's smooth disengage play. This game would look very different if NT wasn't in the right position. If Once didn't hold his ultimate for the correct times, that would look very, very different. But again, you can just see everyone is playing this tenuous balance across the map pretty well, and it's just very hard to pick off the correct targets. Now, NT, as the source of the pick, less ability to disengage.
They'll try and do as much damage as they can to him. He will dodge the rocket, and big turnaround from Honey, who now has a lot of chakrams spinning around him. Not quite gonna let it rip quite yet. No more Beyblade references until that becomes an possibility. It's Jet over the wall trying to chunk out best he can. He's now got 2 items. The
next big one's up and it hits.
Starting to hit onto Secret pretty damn hard. And that mid lane turret still stands. They can't secure it, but Ino has been left alone on the bot side. That's the turret coming through. And the split push option beginning to become a reality for Rascal Jesters.
And as much as in the last game, Paz kind of survived the lane. He survived the lane again-ish, you know. He's down 40 CS, but he's still doing okay. He's going to perform his job in team fights. Rascal Jesters, through this kind of war of attrition, have started taking structures.
Finally, the mid lane turret falls. It's been a hard-won fight, but it is going to go down. And now every single outer turret is down for Rascal Jester. Yes, it's been a grind-out game with a few slight misplays here and there. We are now in a position where Rascal Jesters got something of a goal lead and can maybe start playing towards their win conditions a little more.
So there are 2 ways to think about this. 1, you've taken those out the structures. Rascal Jester's advantage that they get the inroad into the objectives. 2, you don't get to have a siege like that on mid again where you can take advantages. You don't get to hold Sengoku in that lane and say, haha, you have to sit here and get poked, because you have to push into their side of the map to do the same. You're going to get you've gotten as much value as you're going to get out of these structures now. You're not going to get as much in the side lanes. It's much easier to defend and stall out at these 2 items. You're looking at Baron, you're looking at ability to stack up Soul. Rascal Jester need to play the objective game now because the siege is not going to be nearly as easy to get around. And I feel like Sengoku have now a window once again to stall out.
You just saw that from the official stream as well. That gold graph, it looks more extreme than it was. It's only 2,000 gold to 26 minutes. You can see here in the gold, it's about 1,000 out on Ino. And he's going to try and be that win condition right now as Paz trying to hop out best he can, teleporting through onto Ino, who has got to flash and does so. Flash goes popped in trade for Jet's teleport.
So, and remember, later into the game you get, the higher level you are when you use the teleport, the lower the cooldown is. So it's not even going to be like a 6-minute cooldown. It goes, going to be easier to play around. Now, Sengoku having drawn... Okay,
misses the Dusk Wave. A nice attempt there from Honey to try and get a little bit of a chunk out of Soul, but it's not quite sweet enough for his tastes.
But again, and now, I mean, on the other side of this, if Sengoku want to bring everyone to the mid lane, they're happy to J-Ram. They have themselves 2.5 item spike on the Corki. Poke is going to start really hitting home, and there's a rocket heading down towards that bot, so potentially looking to help clear out the wave if it actually hit the Gnar instead of actually just poking him out. That's a good scatter though.
On to NT, but the turnaround, the Onslaught of Shadows prevents the easy turnaround from Soul, so it's HP bars traded and nothing more.
No one died. Again, I thought that might have been it. I saw, because the one person who can't get disengaged easily, or rather can disengage from themselves easily, is NT. NC's positioning has to be key in this game, and that's a large part of why Sengoku haven't been losing that many kills actually in the big fights when you see just the 1 kill going down. But NC being the first one to get picked, that can be quite dangerous, but doesn't happen again, and it is kind of what we called out in draft, saying, hang on, can't just once ult defensively, which is a little bit awkward for the Hacker. Think, hang on, isn't Hacker meant to be the diving champion? But as long as you split the team, tank up a couple of those shots because you're tanky yourself, and just make sure that no one's hitting the first target picked, that can have quite high value. But Sengoku, they don't get to take the tower. They just about survive, and we're back in the status quo.
And you can kind of see it there. Onslaught of Shadows is unstoppable. You can't pillar it. You can't scatter the weak hit. You can't just grand entrance it. He's going to come over onto the top of the Jinx, whatever you're doing. So it's pretty good if you can play it right. The issue is then disengaging yourself afterwards, but you time it right and you can be pretty good blocker against what Rascal Jester want to do. NT did look for the Abyssal dive, but now Sengoku Gaming are around the Infernal Drake. This would be so point for Rascal Jester, and I know is off vision. NT getting chunked, has to flash. The Tryndamere off to the side does not come in for the engage. It's now 2 dragons to pieces. Jet may be in trouble. He's going to get chunked out. Does package away. All the while Paz getting towards Meganar. May come pop in his secret. It's a big knocker, but so much damage back in trade. Look where Ino is doing so much damage trying to get a kill, but he isn't dying. And so damn angry. It's probably likely going to be a 1-for-1 over the wall trying to get the kill. Can't quite secure until the big one gets it out once over the wall with the blast code trying to survive. Another blast code! And he gets out. It's a 2-for-1 in the end. Support and top laner for the top laner of Rascal Jesters.
Close one thing. Honey misses out on the Caliber ult from the Moonlight Vigil, but this time it is again kind of a split fight for the objective. Sengoku losing out on the kills, but getting a dragon, it evens it up. It's 1-for-1, but with once not having ult, not having flash, actually Rascal Jesters could look towards that Baron. We knew it was going to come down to objectives at some point because the fights weren't doing it. It wasn't making it easy enough for these two teams, but Rascal Jester not emboldened enough at this point. Again, doing Baron against Corki, really kind of rough kind of situation. It's painful, and we're left with, once again, how many times can we say it? Very even game, and item breakpoints are starting to get hit yet again. We have a full more of Malmortius come out for Jet, and that is such a strong item if you can build it on this current patch, but on the other side, that's a, actually the Lord Dominic's Regards for Sol gonna come in extra value because you look at not just the ability to take down the front line, it also helps against higher HP targets, which includes Baron. If you want to rush Baron, the extra 15% damage comes through, and Sol is going to be a big part of the DPS towards that. That's actually making a lot out of the efficiency of that 80 carries damage towards that Baron. And you sat here as Sengoku thinking, okay, that's going to lessen our window of time for that to be a dark area vision on the map.
The big discrepancy right now is Honey doesn't have the Infinity Edge quite yet. And I guess Bloodthirst was very expensive compared to something like the Rapid Fire Cannon, but the CS discrepancy, the kills that have gone into Sol means that he is just ahead of the curve right now. And yes, Jet is terrifying, but, you know, Sengoku Gaming really want to wait until Honey at least has that third item to try and really contest more of these objectives. They got away with the Infernal Drake and a 2-for-1 trade against their favor in that sense. But they've just got the Infinity Edge as I speak about it, and now they are perhaps a little bit more ready to fight more aggressively again.
Sam, what era of the Age of Dinosaurs do you think this game is?
Now, well, look, considering we're into about 30 minutes, I'd consider that Jurassic. The last game got to Triassic. In the not Triassic, Cretaceous.
No, Cretaceous is after. So.
Exactly, but that game went to like 40 minutes. It got later again. We're not quite there yet, but maybe we'll see a bit of an extinction event in mid lane as NT is being chunked out, not quite by asteroids, but by explosive rocks. Bullets? Rockets? Rockets? Yeah, there you go. There you go, see? It's kind of works.
No, I don't see it. I'm trying you, Sam. I really don't. And neither do I see another wave. I mean, again, these teams are just really struggling without something so reliable to engage, like the Nautilus, like Leona. We saw a couple of those champions in that last game. Tom Kench was in there. But when you have champions which are so one track and they just have to play on a certain wavelength, like, it makes the game kind of easy to play out because both teams kind of understand what's going to happen at this point. Hatchmecha, he's offering a pillar to the affair, but we're not in the Ice Age yet. We'll get to that point a little after.
Can I offer you a pillar in this trying time?
Sure, it won't do anything. I'm probably just going to get devoured over the other side by NC. It's okay. And once again, disengage reigns supreme. I mean, this seems like one of those games where, like, you know when, I don't know if you played like Arctic Phone, where like you're working.
Oh, Gartic Phone, yes.
Where
you
take a prompt from someone else, or you take like a drawing from someone else. You just try to like work out the next steps towards it. It's like one of these teams is like, haha.
It's basically
they're telling me they have engaged, so I will draw disengage, and then actually there was never engage on the ticket. So then everyone's drawn disengage without drafting anything which can go in. That is the eventuality we've ended up in here.
I offer you poke in trade because, of course, Corki, now with the Oblivion Orb in inventory as well, some of this is going to stick a little harder, and it's level 16 for Jet as well.
Oh, no.
That's going to hurt.
He's gotten to the point where the game has gotten so slow, he's going to ponder his orb. Did you ever see that meme?
No, I definitely thought that was more inappropriate than it was.
No. So now, you'll probably have enough time to edit a version of this meme during the duration of this game. If anyone's, I don't have Photoshop open, I can't do that. But if anyone could,
I suspect casting while doing Photoshop would be a challenge.
Okay, that'll happen next game. So if anyone could draft a Oblivion Orb onto that
time.
Chris, I know you're producing. Don't worry, nothing else needs to happen for a while.
Maybe this is it. What goes in with the Onslaught of Shadows, and that's so much damage. They finally blow up Secret. We've got to kill. Now, I know on the side could maybe throw in a shout. He'll mock somebody gently, and that will be the end of it as Chet just about to buy Soul flashing out. Of course, he also has to go for a Gale Force.
It's one kill. There's a dragon
it's just
available.
Before the dragon.
It is, but both junglers are still alive, and Jet survives. He has
got
the teleport. Has the teleport can come back into it, and it says an awful goddamn lot about this game when one kill is the highlight of the last 5 minutes. 33 minutes in, we have like a kill. Actually, hang on, 10 kills. We have a kill every 3 minutes.
Ish.
That's what we've got. We have a soul
something.
point. We have a Baron being started up in response to it, but even that's gonna get peeled off. God.
Stay strong. Soul point now for Sengoku Gaming at 34 minutes into the game. Can we beat the game record from last game? I just don't know. It's getting that way.
I mean, at this point, you know, you've actually slept on your way to work. You're actually now at the end of the line. You've ended up in Edgeware or something.
Al's definitely the edge of his rope right now. There it is. There's production from LJL OU. Chris Edgeworth, our head of production, head of graphics, head of creativity.
Creative director of LJL OU.
This is the work we pay him for. Well, we don't actually pay because we don't have any money. We wish we could pay Chris because he's this great.
No one has.
We pay him in love and affection.
No, I mean, and at this point, we don't even have any sanity to spare, so good luck.
It's a Call of Cthulhu game at this point. Sanity points have gone.
Oh man, this does feel like the kind of game where you do end up down around to like the last card in the deck and just like, well, gotta end up winning off this card and that this is gonna end up working. The one proactive tool with Sengoku have in the package is now gone. Wait until another 6 minutes.
Baron's happening, by the way. It's gonna go down. They're just gonna lick it. This just go for free. It's gone.
Oh god. Okay, well. So now Sengoku, who were pushing up, now have to deal with those minions being buffed up. But, I mean, doesn't really change the way the fights are gonna go.
I guess maybe they felt they couldn't come over and contest particularly well and thought they could trade out. The Rocket does miss their Jet. It's in a spot of bother, but Secret can't quite get in. Onto the shadows of the backside, but not quite secure. Recap once gets the Baron out to safety, but he's just about alive. Rocket goes wide, and everybody survives!
And again, we are completely sober here. No one's died. No shots are taken. I mean, they kind of have,
shots are taken, but they're missed!
They're
got a drinking problem at an aeroplane! They're trying to throw drinks over their shoulders!
Do you like movies about gladiators, Timmy? Because
no!
we're sat here after round 11 or something as both teams are sat here waiting for the killer blow. And the amount of frustration I have is actually making me go lightheaded. Please get a kill. I'm actually going to need to rehydrate at some point.
Our analysis has been anything but dry, I can tell you that. Alright, well, the Hysteria Horizon has officially been crested. Welcome to the black hole of LJL OU casting when games get like this. 36.5 minutes in, we've got a Baron, but I don't think Rascal Jester can do jack all with it.
I mean, we have 4 item AD carries, and you wouldn't tell. You wouldn't tell because they're not allowed to hit anyone. Like, we are waiting for this kind of stars to align of package, plus Crescendum Calibrum, plus every other cooldown up for Sengoku. And they're still not going to go in because they're going to play around Corki Poke. So we know that's not going to happen. So we're going to left here in purgatory yet again, Sam. What crimes do I still need to, like, atone for? I feel like I've done enough in this game.
Well, I think your crime was hyping up Ari, who then didn't perform as well as we would have liked in the LCK.
But hang on. Ari was great in the LCK. It's LEC which I've completely doomed.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, well, yeah, that's okay, fair play.
You should have seen his face there. There was like, I watched his smile just drop. We were all a little bit sad.
Well,
unfortunately, couldn't quite make it work. Very competitive region. And of course, slightly sad. We wish for his recovery and the better luck in the next split, perhaps with another team. But as it stands, the Baron push doesn't really amount to much because, of course, there's a Hurricane in Honey's inventory alongside Inferno. Means waves disappear. A wave of fire.
I genuinely feel like that should have been much like in the same logic as Salt. Just go for the... You have damage. That's not the problem. It's just the utility to get it in there. Genuinely feel like Rapid Fire Cannon would have been a really good buy here for Honey. Not because you're trying to optimize damage, just because you need to get a range to hit someone!
Wow, the rocket's certainly in range to hit people. That's recapped down to half HP off one single big one pass. Coming from Flipping down to Mega now. So much damage in trade. Moonlight Vigil was popped as we saw. So much damage came out of that pass. Building up towards the Mega, trying to keep going forward. Secret is dead. On the other side, it's back onto once. The jungler is down. Jet can't quite secure onto his opposing number. Recap is still alive, but the rocket cleans.
Not a 1-for-1!
Pass shuts down Sol. It is the top side of Sengoku Gaming and trade for the bot side plus I know.
It's jungler's dead though. It's not. Oh no, the jungler's dead, so we can't even take objectives.
They could do turrets. Turrets count as objectives. Come here. It's gonna be okay. It's
I need
okay.
help.
I'm
something.
giving a visual description, audio description of what's happening. I am watching Nightmare break down. I'm holding him in my arms right now to offer emotional support. As the mid lane now under more siege. Sengoku Gaming trying the absolute best. Massive gale force for can't quite secure the kill. Rocket is inches wide. Not again. Surely not again. Does Recap survive?
But this still doesn't seal the game. This is still just another step closer. It's gonna be a dragon in 10 seconds, but there's no teleports. And at this point, actually, Infernal Soul down. At this point, maybe, dare I say it, I wonder if Rascal Jester realized, hang on, we can't play the ranged battle anymore against Infernal Soul after that amount of damage. Do we need to fight?
I think it might come down to just that. 4 items are in pretty much across the board where it matters. The only person yet to get that one for the side of Rascal Jester is Ino's Tryndamere, who does not have the Infinity Edge yet.
So, production. I'm gonna ask anyone in the back room, I don't know if anyone's got the stats for me. How long was the 3-0 from DFM in game time? Because between these 2 games, we are now at 87 minutes between 2 games. I wonder if we've already outpaced that DFM Juggernaut match in 1 less game with potentially more to go.
Infernal Soul in, Rascal Jesters sieging into the mid lane, even down the Baron buff. That mid lane tier 2 will fall. Moonlight Vigil hits! Does a fair amount of damage. Oh my days, the Chakrams come shredding through Soul down to about a third HP, but no one dies.
No one can capitalize on the kills. There's an Infernal Soul. Good damage, sweet, but you're not actually pinning someone in place long enough to actually take them down. At this point, I'm actually wondering if something like a cheeky collector buy, just be like, haha, I fooled you, I actually have a damage to take you down at this point, could actually be valuable, because these teams, again, so hard to capitalize. The disengage is too strong, and we're splitting the map out finally. We're playing around side lanes a little bit, but these teams are really struggling to get the big sweeping victories.
Eyes on the Warmogs and Hatchabetch's infantry, because that explains a lot about how this game is going. We're seeing big chunks, but no one falling. At least until that last sequence of plays, because the point is, you get chunked, you walk away, you come back at full HP. I think the difficulty is right now is that Rascal Jesters cannot stand in front of Sengoku Gaming for any extended period, Warmogs or not.
No, but I mean, you are really looking for godlike Rakan flank. Now, we know that Rascal Jesters, you know, it's a throwback to a game which we reference a lot, because in our very first split, one of our favorite moments from spring 2020 was Vivid on Rascal Jesters, playing around the Rakan flanks. NT getting caught right now.
The shadows as the counter engage into the package, but he gets stunned! Jet is dead! The jet fuel was burned, and he's the one who's burnt down into a big chunk on the side, though Ino does get enough time to throw down the Undying Rage until the Boulder Toss comes and crushes Secret.
There's no flash!
But Paz has no flash. Does he have the hop? Not quite. Surely trying to heal up. He gets over the wall and he's alive. It's a 1-for-1.
It's another 1-for-1. How do we keep doing this? Last game, it was, again, a tense affair. It was engage into engage. But this game, finally, it feels like maybe there is another opening. It's against the Infernal Soul, but it is not quite enough to really, again, get the big ace plays. Once has no ult, has ghost, he can't get over the wall, it's only or nothing!
Moonlight Vigil doesn't quite secure it, but Sol does. It's no smite required, apparently. I was on the edge of my seat, and Rascal Jesters get the Baron in 42 minutes, 20 seconds into the game.
I feel like we need to...
We're back to this.
I feel like we need to, on the packaging of this series, say instead of batteries not included, smite's not included, because we're really trying to go the distance with this, but this is Sol just outspacing what the Corki wanted to do, gets out, and Sol and Honey try to make their own hero plays. See the amount of damage these carries have. And Salt, Infernal Soul, be damned, really, really trying to put down the hurt. But again, it's so hard to make the damage take. Too much mobility, not an ability to really hold people in place, and the hop comes out just in time. A little bit of help from Hyperproc and a Fleet Footwork, and Paz gets out alive. And we are still within reach of each other. Jet trying to burst out Ino, and you can see the damage he does. But again, these teams, they haven't reached that break point of just actually 100-0. That's when things will turn around.
I've got to say, I think you might need to rename the mid lane to Re, because there was no cap to be found in that little play last time out, because that Scout of the Week managed to shut out that package play. Scout of the Week from over the Raptor kit was so critical.
We're actually just about to get an update from production. I assume this is on the series life. Chris, can you give us the news? Okay, so DFM in 3 games beat Sengoku in 93 minutes. 91 minutes and a number of seconds. We're about 6 minutes away from that. And given how, again, we haven't had the crushing fights, we could be getting onto that level. And Rascal Jester looking to siege with that Baron. They find something. It is against the Soul. Again, the combat stats are going the way of Sengoku, but they have the reliable Jinx against the reliable Corki. It is, well, okay, say reliable. I mean, Jet hasn't found, again, the godlike game-ending rockets in his own right, but it is, again, all down to execution at this point. Who actually lands the damage at the correct times onto one goddamn target to take them off for a clean victory for once.
And I want you to ignore the gold at the top of the screen. At this point, it's pretty much irrelevant. The main people that matter are at 5 items. There's 3 items on your junglers, and they're quite happy at this point being tanks to do what they need to do. That gold, the 3,000 Rascal just got out of that play, is just meaningless right now.
But and actually, at this point, you look at that Pokemon, talk about, oh gosh, the Infernal Assault. There's a Bloodthirster on both AD carries. That really helps. You have a Moore onto Corki. You're not going to be able to one-shot him too easily either. It's just so hard to take down your key carries. And maybe we are just waiting for, again, just that one. Again, it's so easy for these frontliners of Sengoku to kind of bail each other out. You still had a Devour at that point. NT, watch them. Blast Kona going to take Sengoku as a team away from things, but it's coming down to an Elder. It was a backdoor at the last one, but Sengoku still have a hell of a lot of base left to stop that eventuality happening around this. 20 seconds until it spawns. You don't have a Hecarim ult now. That's one big engage tool down, but there's no vision. Have to see what happens. Sengoku has the damage.
Recap gets a big one. But there will be little else to be found at this point. Vok is going wide. Soul goes forwards. Doesn't get that much damage down. Doesn't find what he needed to. Rocket goes wide. Well, Jet trying to go forward. Flash away from Secret, who did like to go in there. Paz at Mega coming through. Once on the side. Still waiting on an Onslaught of Shadows to come back off cooldown. They're looking for mid lane control. Elder Dragon has spawned. Paz has teleport. Will have to teleport back in.
And Rascal Jesters again. We said that they might get outranged. They might struggle in the 4v4, but they're getting to the objectives first. They're getting to where they need to be, but they're getting shredded!
Down to about half HP as the Elder Dragon. Moonlight Vigil comes in. Big chunk, but not enough. The Chakram follow up, but it's a big Guardian Shield to keep the AD carry alive who had to burn heal. Once is now in the Elder Dragon, but it'll come down to a slight fight.
We're flipping it!
Burger's time around. Still gonna try and survive. Once gets the Elder Dragon, but the fight afterwards is going in the favor of Rascal Jesters. Tom Kent secures the Tryndamere. That's the name of the champion. I forgot it. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of Sengoku Gaming. Sorry, in favor of Rascal Jesters, but Sengoku Gaming get the Elder Dragon. I am losing track of everything.
Those burgers are well and truly burned out in the Infernal Soul, but it's the Elder flip. Jet looking, hunting for something, going behind enemy lines, but Hachamecha trying to recall in this middle brush. Is he going to get caught? He's trying to find his way.
It's going to be close.
They're giving up. No, they've given up. Sengoku, they have themselves an Elder, but can they finish the game?
No, they can't. Honest answer, no, can't.
And you can see, again, if you can't engage on the champions, well, Elder's not moving out of the way, so that one's going to come down to it, and it is not Hachamecha that gets that smite. It is Once, and again, for Once who was part of that team, that Burning Core roster, which was so down in the dumps last split. He's 1-5, but by God, he's not going out with a fight in his chance to reach a finals for... I'm actually not sure if Once ever reached that finals.
He did.
Remember.
He used to...
On Rampage.
Absolutely.
Yes,
he was among the best junglers in the region at that point, doing extraordinary. I think, in fact, his top laner at the time would have been Ebby, if I recall correctly.
I need to have a quick... We've been given some poetry.
Have we?
To read out by Twitch chat. So, The year is 2029. We are in a 1-week break before the 5th game, the semi-final match between Rascal Jester and Sengoku Gaming. The legendary the game 3 lasted for 6 years without a pause, and thankfully, after a 10-month game 4, it's now the Silver Scrapes. The world stops completely as every electronic device across Earth switches to the LJL broadcast. Supplies have been stockpiled and can sustain the whole population for 10 years. Experts worry the game might not be over then. Thank you very much, Middlecott and Twitch chat, for the advent of that copy pasta. Kashka, I believe, heard it out before that. I don't know where it started. It's been lost to the annals of time. Just
get your supplies in, bunker down for the long haul. We've got 6 years yet to go, but 200 years of game design are currently on the Baron. It's down. Sengoku Gaming secure their first Baron of the series. The Moonlight Vigil should go wide. Paz has to hop away. And that super mega death rocket is only super. It doesn't really do a lot of mega damage at this point, as I know. Looking for a flank pass down very low. Elder Dragon, I believe, still just wearing off. Honey is kind of frontlining, looking to get onto Hatcher Metcha, doing so much damage. Empty still with
No, but where can they retreat? They can't retreat anymore. They're out of space. Rascal Jester, they've corralled them.
But do they want the fight even so? Soul pretty tanky. Onslaught of Shadows. Doesn't get enough. The quickness is there at once. Is dead. Recap at the back end. No! Sengoku Gaming die like that. Rascal Jesters find a fight. 49 minutes in, somehow, some way, Infernal Soul, Baron, Elder Buff, none of it, they will find a game to win.
And Rascal Jesters, they're poised to go 2-0 after 2 absolute wall-to-wall bangers. End of the field to the other. A recap. 8-0 for unkilled in this unholy back and forth without engages, without a light at the end of the tunnel. Your tube station is at the end of the line finally. Mind the gap, Rascal Jesters go 2-0.
What do you know? They hit the end of the line and that's what it ends up as. Extraordinary stuff in some manners. We're just about alive. The Hysteria Horizon was past a solid 20 minutes ago. Somehow, some way, Rascal Jesters are 2-0.
And we went on an aside a little bit before saying, what era of the dinosaurs are we in? And we said, maybe it's sometime in the Jurassic. Well, we've had our nuclear explosion from asteroids flying from the atmosphere, and Sam leaves the stage. I'm gonna go leave the stage briefly as well in a quick break, because you know what? We have some very fine folks here to run you through whatever the happened in that game on the analyst desk. We'll let them describe it for you.
LJL fans, welcome back. We just need to catch our breath for a moment. These cameras, our analysts will be here in just a moment. They are recovering from what was an incredible game 2. Welcome back, friends. Rascal Jesters now stand 2-0 in the series. They are poised to take it to DFM with one more win. Personally, I feel like we've entered the Sengoku comfort zone and we're going to be here for the next 7 hours giving you the reverse sweep. But that may not yet come to pass. Gentlemen, we have lots of opinions about how this series is developing, about how things are transpiring. Middlecott, you wanted to isolate a single player who you think has been pivotal, both positively and negatively in this series.
Yeah, and before I do that, Temporal, I kind of want to be a little bit biased and say I want Sengoku to win Game 3 because I want as many minutes, seconds of this series as possible because it is so intense, it's so high tension, it's so high pressure, and both teams are really giving it their all. Talking to a player that I think needs to step up a little bit is Once. I think he has had some strong early games, but there have been a couple of moments as we've been getting later into these games, missing the smite on the Baron in game 1 to give Secret the steal on that Tahm Kench, which I think really brought Rascal Jester back into that game. And there were some engages on the Hecarim this time around that were just a little bit too far forward for the rest of his team to follow up. I still think he has been playing great, as have all of the players in this series. And it really speaks to the quality of what we're seeing, that these micro mistakes, these small mispositions, these small misplays can be so impactful.
The spotlight is certainly on Once. Even the Elder Dragon going backwards and forwards, that deep decision to not take the reset is, oh boy, you don't cut this tension with a knife. You need some sort of laser beam, chainsaw, electron cutter. You need something incredible to get through the palpable, the dense field of tension in this game. RMC, you wanted to talk a little bit about the top lane.
Yeah, so I will say as well, in Once's defense, at least he got the Elder this time. He went in the Smite fight and he picked that up. That was critical. But I really think the top lane, it's the most quiet lane in this game. But I know when Paz, the fact that Paz started winning that 1v1 in the mid to late game was, I think, critical for Sengoku to stretch the game out. I know on this Tryndamere should have been able to take over, should have been able to split push, but we saw even with the Baron buff, Paz was still able to handle the 1v1, and I think that kept them in the game. It's critical, it's huge, and considering that we came into this saying that I know might be able to surprise and beat Paz and perhaps take over the game, I think it's huge for Sengoku and that Paz can do this and maybe put Paz on a bit of a bigger carry, play through that lane a little bit. If you can do this on the Gnar into what should be a losing matchup late, if you give Paz a winning matchup, that might be what you need to start turning the tides a little bit more.
Can be that extra angle, that extra arrow in Sengoku's quiver. Swan, on the desk after the first game, we said, oh, we just really want to see Sengoku get a Baron. And I'm afraid it didn't turn out quite the way we had hoped.
Can I just use my quote from the top of the desk from the previous one? Ah! Really, lads, this series is killing me. Actually doing me harm. Some of these fights are just so tense. I'm I want the full 5 games. I predicted a 3-1 for Sengoku. That can't happen anymore. I'm wrong with my prediction. Temporal, you can still be correct, though. Nightmare and Initializer joining me now with being wrong with the 3-1.
If I'm correct, we're going to be here for literally hours.
Yeah. literally, we're probably going to be here because we had 46-minute game into 48, 49-minute game that last one was.
Let's hit an hour. Come on.
Let's try, guys, to go for the longest game in Season 12. I think that's what we've got to aim for now. I'm going to find out what it is in between this break, by the way.
The LJL is a region of romance, of drama, of heartbreak, of dreams coming together and being dashed.
That was just game 1.
That was just game 1 in the most beautiful, beautiful way. We've got some highlights from the last game, Middlecott. I want you to talk over this one. I want those internal feelings through as we see this clip play out.
Yeah, and honestly, I was kind of panicking for Rascal Jester here because this didn't really look like a fight that they could take. But Once going forward with the engage, not quite able to find it as clean as he would like. And then I know doing what he did so many times this game, causing a ruckus in the backline, causing a load of disruption, just sneaking away at the end of that undying range, the smite away from Once. So neither team is able to actually pick up that Herald. But it was really a taste of what we had to come in this series.
the backwards and forwards, even though the score doesn't tell that, these two teams are so close together. This is everything the LJL has to offer outside of our star-studded international DFM, that big rock we mentioned, but the paper and the scissors. So close. We got another clip for the highlights. Just going to bring that one up. Swan, this was at a key stage in the game.
Oh, this was the moment where it all felt lost and done, but at the same time, it kind of showed why Recap got MVP of the previous series versus Burning Core, because preventing Once and Jet, and then the follow-up play that came from Hatcher Metcha here as well, like, you can tell Rascal Jester are really on top of comms at the moment, because they know where they're doing their pathing, you know where they're going to play around the map. But Recap, honestly, this was just him kind of styling a little bit, and why this Syndra was always scary from him.
Yes.
As we recap on the play, you can really see the confidence, the way in which I think lost is just the best word. Jet just meandering out of the play, uncertain of anything at all. Really, really difficult here for Sengoku. And they bounce back, and I think we might have one more clip of a late game team fight. They did continue in this game, but RMC, this is where it all started.
Yeah, so for all that we saw good plays coming out from the side of Rascal Jesters in the early game, they really struggled in the mid game. And this was where I actually thought that Sengoku could finally break it. This was that tension you were talking about that you could cut with a knife here. You saw how close it came down on that particular Elder Drake. And the fact that Once picked it up was massive. The problem is what comes after that. And that feels like the issue with Sengoku every time right now, is that they're committing so much to these major objectives that even when they get it, they're so out of position they get punished. In this case, they lost 2. It was a 2-for-1, and they had Elder. With Elder, you're supposed to win every single fight. And the last objective they take was that final fated Baron, the only one Sengoku has gotten this series. And look what happened there. They didn't just lose 2 that time. They lost everyone. They lost their Nexus. And it shouldn't be that case. Sengoku had the better skilling. Jet's Corky was... Oh, we actually have the clip of that.
Oh, there it is.
So we get to relive this moment again.
The incredible patience displayed by Jesters. You can imagine.
Pretty much. And I think the weird thing, the sort of like the big thing about this fight for me, it was one of the few times that we actually had one of these explosive team fights where it's more than sort of 3 or 4 people going down, right? A lot of the fights have been 2-for-2s, 1-for-1s, but yeah, Rascal Jester, they just completely take over, and Sol does so much damage. I can't wait to go on GOL after this series is over and see the damage numbers coming out from these AD carries. Because I'm imagining that we have got some 4-digit games in there in terms of DPM. It has been a joy to watch so far.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight on that particular player as well. We were counting down behind the scenes on the analyst desk here how many seconds before Elder ran out, because the start of that fight had Elder for Sengoku, and that was what I was saying. Sengoku, there's no need to throw this way. Play it slow. You had all the objectives. You had all the advantages. Jet skilling, Jet's range was a huge advantage. But Rascal Jesters, this is why they had the late game team. Even when they lost Elder, they timed it to perfection. The moment Elder wore off, or actually 3 seconds before Elder wore off, they started the engage because they knew they would survive the initial 3 seconds.
Counter disagree, Sengoku's throw.
We must praise, even if it is not just this play, but many, as the incredible patience of the Rascal Jester. I can imagine in comms, san, ni, ich, go. And it's so perfect in that late game fight. And that is what has rewarded them with the 2-0 here. We must emphasize this is a very close series. And if Sengoku can display that resilience, we may be here for a few hours yet. So glad you could all join us for that classic game 2. This will go down in LJL history as very, very peak LJL. We're going to kick it to a short break, and we'll be right back in a few.